Let's examine what DNA is and how it works to better understand how information is used in the cell.
DNA is the instruction manual for how to build life. From animals to plants to humans, it defines us all.
Friends, what is DNA? It is a message with content. It is a language. Just like English uses a 26-letter alphabet, DNA uses a 4-letter chemical alphabet. In fact, inside every cell of the human body is as many words as you would find in thousands of editions of your Sunday newspaper. It's the specific, detailed, written instructions for how to build all of the proteins in the human body. Where did that come from?
If you think about it, DNA is basically nature's hard drive. You are the result of a three-dimensional computer program written in tiny compounds wound up inside the nucleus of all your cells. It's a set of instructions, coded and saved, that our body writes and reads to build proteins, construct cells, and perform thousands of other tasks.
Chemically, the DNA in the cells of my body is the same as that in a fruit fly, an orange, a hippo, an elephant. It's all the same chemically. The uniqueness to all of those species of living things lays in the information content of the DNA. So while the chemistry may be the same, the actual information that's embedded in that chemistry is very, very different.
Bill Gates, who pioneered the personal computer and founded Microsoft, once said, "Human DNA is like a computer program, but far, far more advanced than any software we've ever created." The implications of this statement are quite profound.
And if you reflect on that even for a minute, it's a highly suggestive observation, because we know that Bill Gates does not employ wind and erosion or random number generators to generate his software. Instead, he employs intelligent engineers, software engineers. And so everything we know in our experience suggests that information-rich systems arise from intelligent design. But what do we make of the fact that there is information in life, in every living cell of every living organism? That's the fundamental mystery. Where does that information come from?
Our DNA has information in it, and there is a whole field of scientific study called information science, which studies how information originates, how it's transmitted, and so on. And one of the laws of information science says that information never originates by itself in matter, never spontaneously comes about. Anytime we trace the copying of information back to its source, it always comes back to a mind. And since we have creative information in DNA, that tells me that DNA comes from intelligence. It's not something that could possibly come about through millions of years of mutations and natural selection. That just won't work.
It is so unbelievably complex. If you typed out the code found in your DNA, when you got done typing, you'd have enough books to fill Grand Canyon 78 times. That's the instructions to make you. I'd say you're pretty special.
Life requires fully functional DNA, RNA, ATP, enzymes, and other proteins. If any of those components were missing or not working properly, life would fail to exist. This continues to generate several unanswered questions. How could non-living material develop the hardware and software known to be required by all living organisms? How did nature develop the arbitrary protocols for communication and coordination among the thousands of computers in each cell? These kinds of questions lead to interesting discussions among scientists. Those who adhere to a purely naturalistic explanation for the existence of life are left struggling to find mechanisms to create such a sophisticated information source. In any case, the existence of life is indeed a mystery, and it's an exciting topic for discussion, one which should encourage critical thinking.
We all begin as a single cell the size of a period at the end of a sentence. How does that cell know how to build a body with 100 trillion cells in it, thousands of different kinds, and each one of them is so complex, nanochemical machinery beyond our comprehension how it works. And encoded is the instruction manual. It's the manufacturer's manual how to build and operate every part of this incredible body made up of 100 trillion cells.
When we stop to think about our own body having approximately 100 trillion cells, each group having a unique purpose, such as epidermis, the lungs, heart, skeletal structure, muscles, nervous system, digestive system, reproductive system, immune system, and the brain all working simultaneously to form this magnificent machine we call the human body, we begin to have an appreciation for the complexity, elegance, and beauty of life. And as we look around us at the millions of plant and animal species, it becomes incredibly breathtaking to ponder how much information and organization must take place for all of this life to exist. While we know a great deal about the cell and its functionality, we've only scratched the surface of its inner workings. Scientists are continually discovering new information and data concerning the cell and its DNA. As our knowledge increases, it gives us a deeper understanding of how complex a single cell really is. And as we ponder this miniature marvel, we begin to wonder, could this simple cell have evolved from the elements of the earth over time? Is it possible for this to have happened by natural processes? In the mid-1800s, there was a discovery made in the fossil record known as the Cambrian explosion. The Cambrian explosion was an abrupt, rapid appearance of most major phyla, displaying a major diversification of fully formed organisms in that era, an era which makes up less than 0.1% of the history of life on Earth. In his book, The Blind Watchmaker, Richard Dawkins says, it is as though they were just planted there without any evolutionary history. Chinese paleontologist J.Y. Chen, who lectures around the world, stated recent fossil finds in China are inconsistent with the Darwinian theory of evolution. And British paleontologist Bud Graham said, the expected Darwinian pattern of deep fossil history, stretching millions of years into the Precambrian, has singularly failed to materialize. The Cambrian explosion shows us that there was a point in time when there was a sudden increase of fully formed, highly programmed organisms with no prior evidence of evolution or transitional fossils. With a century of intensive collecting behind us, we now know these exceptionally preserved biotas occur globally. So how did such an abrupt explosion occur in the Cambrian fossil record with no prior evidence of evolving fossils? Since the release of Darwin's book On the Origin of Species, published in 1859, our scientific techniques, technology, and discoveries have advanced by leaps and bounds, showing us that Darwin was wrong on his ideas of the origin of species. Natural selection cannot explain the existence of millions of living organisms, each of which contain millions of unique computer programs controlling the information of life. Scientists, students, and critical thinkers alike are examining and questioning how such exquisite programming could arise by chance processes. Evolution has fallen short in the areas of geology, biology, astronomy, and most recently, information science, and yet we continue to hang on to this broken theory. If something can't be proven feasible through scientific principles, it should not be considered science. So, what is the probability of a simple cell evolving by undirected natural processes? The probability of a single protein being formed by undirected natural processes is only 1 in 10 to the 164th power. That's 10 with 164 zeros following it. That's pretty big. The probability of life, a simple cell evolving by undirected natural processes, is 1 in 10 to the 340 millionth power. That is unimaginable. Here's an illustration to help demonstrate just what this means. Here we have one tiny grain of sand. It's been estimated that there are 1 million grains of sand in a half a cup. It would take 1 million half cups of sand to fill a swimming pool that's 6 feet deep and 30 feet in diameter. Now, if we took 1 billion of these pools of sand, we could fill Lake Tahoe in Nevada, which is about 22 miles long and 12 miles wide. Think you could find that original grain of sand we started with? We're not done yet. It would take about 1 billion Lake Tahoes to fill the volume of the Earth with sand. The probability of grabbing that original grain of sand out of the Earth filled with sand is 1 in 10 to the 30th power. It would take 100 million Earths to fill 1 sun with sand, and 1 trillion suns to fill our solar system, 10 trillion solar systems to fill 1 cubic light year, 100 trillion cubic light years to fill the volume of the Milky Way galaxy, and finally 10 billion Milky Way galaxies to fill the observable universe. Whew. That is a lot of sand. The probability of now randomly picking our original grain of sand from the entire observable universe is 1 in 10 to the 96th power. Still a far cry from our protein being formed at 1 in 10 to the 164th power, and even less chance of life evolving from undirected natural processes at the probability of 1 in 10 to the 340 millionth power. Starting to get the idea? Scientists generally consider anything with a probability of less than 1 part in 10 to the 70th power operationally impossible. And by the way, that calculation doesn't take into consideration the information that's stored in the cell, which directs the cell in all aspects of operation. That estimate is solely the chance of chemicals combining to form something living. So, the chance of life evolving and retaining the information needed to replicate itself is astronomically smaller than anything we know. And that's only one organism. Think about what it would mean for millions of complex organisms to have evolved from an undirected natural process. According to information science, the probability is so small that it's deemed operationally impossible.
We know at present there is no naturalistic explanation, no natural cause that produces information. Not natural selection, not self-organizational processes, not pure chance. But we do know of a cause which is capable of producing information, and that is intelligence. So when people infer design from the presence of information in DNA, they're effectively making what's called in the historical sciences an inference to the best explanation. So when we find an information-rich system in the cell, in the DNA molecule specifically, we can infer that an intelligence played a role in the origin of that system, even if we weren't there to observe the system coming into existence.
Who can say